The Hands of Franky Machine is set in a cityscape, kind of near future, like 5 minutes into the future. It concerns a young woman, late 20s, early 30s, and her nickname is Frankie Machine. She's a drummer, she's a drum battler. She makes her money, or some of her money at least, playing drum battles in the clubs. She has a brother called Sonny, and they have a sort of mutually supportive but also kind of codependent or enabling relationship. And they live in this city where there's a sort of corporate multimedia entity called Eureka, and they've developed an algorithm that plots every permutation of notes on a scale, and they've copyrighted it. They've lobbied for intellectual copyright reform. The brother and sister are getting slapped with legal writs all the time, telling them to cease and desist, to pay, literally rent, the notation that they're using, or they'll get sued. So Frankie is at a point where, as gifted as she is, she's starting to question whether this is a way to live at all. And the strain of it is beginning to tell on her. What do you do when the thing that you love to do becomes a thing that is starting to kill you? I am Peter Murphy. I am a writer, a member of Cursed Murphy versus the Resistance, a showrunner, a podcaster, journalist, broadcaster, and part-time human unit. And I am the writer and narrator of The Hands of Franky Machine.
My name's Lorcan Byrne. I'm a drummer, songwriter, composer. I work primarily with my brother in a band called Basketball, and as a session drummer then for various other acts.
The project came about as a COVID response award, and the Opera House obviously couldn't be open for business during the lockdown, but it became apparent that Aisling here in the Opera House was open to the spaces being used in a socially distanced, limited form, but that they be used during the lockdown, that the building just wouldn't sit here dormant. We walked in here with pages and a drum kit and some recording technology and nothing else. And we very quickly had to begin. We set up, and on the first day I did a read-through of the whole story, and then we started to block it off into sections. And then the next day we had like an experimental day of trying out musical ideas to go with the piece, and I think most of them were like the first idea was the best idea. When I say that, you can bet Lorcan has been running this stuff in his head all along, and he's a very intuitive and sensitive player in that he thinks cinematically.
We start
Go through it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What we did in Fusion was a 9-minute excerpt from it.
Yeah.
So what's happened is working on the story since then, it's expanded. So the arrangement of that part is no longer the story, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I figure we should record the story and score it. But then next week I can boil it back down to something very similar to that original arrangement, and we can record it live.
Yeah.
But we'll say for the next 5 or 6 days we'll just record the. I suppose the first thing we should do is record the story, and then you, or as we're going through, we can block out ideas. But I'll put the story down anyway, and you can have a think about.
Yeah.
About scoring it.
I think just walking into the building every day, the Opera House, really helps you get into the right frame of mind to create something. I think it actually would have turned out quite different if it was in a different room. The way we recorded was the two of us performing the pieces live. So I'm just listening to the story as it's going, so trying to honestly react to the story as it unfolds and trying to represent what Peter is saying.
Years of human jukebox gigs and shithole sports bars. Years of playing gyms while fighters work the bag. The flat smacking sound of the gloves as they slap the pads. The mouldy smell of the leather and the sweat. The brushes on snare drum shuffle of boxing boots on concrete floors. The medicinal reek of deep heat swabs. Years of residencies, battles, throwdown sets in dingy bars where knucklehead drummers are dumb enough to think they stand a chance against her in the cage. You want to know how good she is? Come with me. We'll take a look.
Yeah.
That with a couple of layers over the top.
Yeah, so start off there and then
Yep.
at a certain point it felt like there was a different dynamic there.
Yeah. Embellishment. You lock up the apartment.
The demands on the musician and the drum kit itself are quite large. So once we had ideas roughed out, it was a matter of refining them, and then the really absorbing, intense work of recording them. It's been the most intense recording experience I've ever had. I've made spoken word albums, recorded with the band obviously, but never had to do sustained performances for such long chunks of time.
And I sit the rest of the currency in Frankie's window. Sorry. I'll pay you back. Got me disability. Look, if you need to.
The space definitely influenced the overall sound. There was quite a lot of reverb in the room, so I couldn't really start playing really loud or anything. So we tried to play with the reverb a bit in terms of using mallets on the drums and stuff and letting the drums ring out a bit.
6 nights a week for minimum tips. Lawyers breathe down our necks. Doesn't matter how good I am. That's not what I like. Your hand. This isn't about my hand. My hand will heal if that one touches.
was actually, at times I was hearing like a bit of a 4 to the floor, electronic bass.
Yeah.
Electronic kick drum.
Yeah. Maybe.
That section could be a little bit more.
We could be a little on the nose, but it could be like maybe room for tongue cheek, maybe room for like brighter colours and that.
Yeah. Cool. Through the nature of us recording at the same time, there was a bit of spill between the drums and the vocals, so we actually ended up moving room to the theatre for that reason, because there was 2 pieces in particular that needed to be louder and more intense, so we needed to get a kind of deader room with a bit more separation between the 2 of us.
First thing to strike you is the sound, a syncopated break, loud and kinetic. It attacks your synaptics, jacks up your pulse, your heart rate. You can feel the snare hit the front of your skull, the kick drum in your sternum. The club's all clamour and heat, tables bolted to the floor, padded booths, scuffed steel fittings. The kind of place they pat you down when you enter and again when you leave. But it's the noise that dominates, blasting from the raised stage at the back of the club, from a pair of risers caged by chicken wire and camouflage mesh for visual effect, or protection, or both. Inside the cage, 2 drummers raise a sweat. You can feel their heat. Equidistant between trap kits, an electronic metronome flashes its beats per minute readout by way of glowing red digits. The thundering of the drums' doubled assault, coupled to the metronome loop, is pumped through a rig that, strictly speaking, is way too big for the club. Blue-tinged plasma screens flank the stage, magnifying the action. Close-up shots of fingers, sticks, wrists. Both drummers work to stay synced with the metronome, which accelerates in tempo as the bout gains impetus, the pace brutalizing. The first one to drop the beat will lose the bout. This is drumming as extreme sport, endurance test. The club's clientele, night crawlers and bottom feeders, ex-cops and ex-cons, dopers, all-purpose johns. They down shots and cast lots and make bets and holler as they eyeball the action. Frankie's the drummer on the left. Her skin gleams as she works the loop, furious but focused, total immersion in the rhythm. She's lean, all sinew, sweating like a horse. It's hard to take her eyes off her eyes,
Her hands, veins pumped and swollen along her forearms. She uses orthodox grip, the jazzman's, the snap of her wrist delivering hard strikes to the snare drum angled on its stand. Her calves are flexed, the ball of her right foot bobbing on the kick pedal, the left easing the hi-hat clutch open and shut for emphasis, phrasing, sibilant sizzles. Her posture is ramrod, a vertical line to the sacrum. You can imagine her spine is a stack of coins, her center of gravity so maintained, but her movements are fluid. A bead of sweat rolls down her cheek. She shakes her head like a cat. Regulars call her Frankie Machine, the only battler with the skill and the stamina to maintain pace with that accelerating metronome until the challenger drops. Frankie knows when to lay back, when to push. The fiber-tipped sticks a hummingbird blur in her hands. Across the stage, her challenger starts to flag. He's maybe 20, 21, hair in cornrows, face twisted somewhere between the grimace of ecstasy and the rictus of pain. Frankie leans into that 22-inch ride cymbal and eyeballs him sidelong, gauging his strength, his reserves, pushing harder yet, goading the boy past his limits, hastening the end game. The boy's getting sloppy, tiring. He must know he's done. It happens fast. He flubs a fill, loses the beat, slips out of the loop, whoops from the floor. Disgusted, the kid drops his sticks and rises from his stool and stalks off stage. But hoots and boos remind him of battler's etiquette, so he returns to shake with Frankie, who accepts the formality of the forfeit, slugs water from a sports bottle and towels sweat from her face. A drunk yells, "Frankie, you're a machine!" Frankie says, "Fuck you, man, I kill machines." This is where you'll find her any given night, sweating for the meatheads, the greasy suits, the creeps who try to hit on her as she makes her way to or from the stage, her rebuff blunt enough to penetrate the alcohol. I'm working. 3 sets a night, competing against all comers, names drawn out of a beer stein. Step right up, who's afraid of the skinny chick? All types take the bait. Steroidal speed metal monsters with caffeine metabolisms and pro-athlete physiques. Jazz magicians, fresh from university scholarships. Buzz-cut rap loop martial artists. 6 nights a week she does this. No joke, her muscles hurt, her joints ache. Years of burning strain. Every other moment she's not playing, she's in spasm, running on fumes in a creeping desperation. Someone as good as her, she should be pulling down 50 G's a year. Someone as good as her should be pampered like a champion stud. Instead, she spent the last 3 years alternating shifts in the snake pit with residencies in places that stink of piss and citrus-scented detergents. Places your boots stick to the floor. Dive bars. Watering holes. And still she's got to work twice as hard as any guy to score a gig. Always the double take when she walks in the room. The shit tech boys ask at sound checks. You the backup singer? The stripper? How much more of this before she's old and broke? Another no-hoper touting make-or-break demo clips at 35. How much longer before Eureka pulls the plug? Think that's not possible? Eureka can do anything. Eureka owns our dreams. Its apparatus might have deep state roots. Could be Chinese, Indian, or Russian-backed. Maybe all of the above. The spread of accountability spread thin enough for the shareholders to sleep at
night. All we know for sure is the hurt they put on us down here on the street.